All right. We are live. Let me get my Zoomy thing up.
Ooh.
You know when people are going to look at this in the future, they're going to say, Zoom, this must be old. Like if you watch an episode thing and they're like, hey, we're on Skype. Oh, this must be an old episode. Because Skype is gone. Did you know that?
Mm-mm.
Skype is actually gone. It's not even there anymore.
So
Anyway,
this is
it's
gone.
almost human live, and I just gave you an education on internet shows. Now, because they used Skype before, and now we use Zoom. And we're gonna have Neil Turbin on very soon. We're waiting for him, but as always, we got Wayne Noon,
Oh, hey.
master of the ceremonies. You know,
Yeah, I see.
let me tell you something. Everybody in internet shows cannot get no higher. They
No.
all call Wayne sire.
Yeah. You
That's
wish you can be as cool as I am.
Tony Diaz.
Fire Wayne. What's that?
Oh man, look what's sticking. I swear. I just because I can see behind me. I swear this is pure coincidental. Look what's sticking out of my record collection.
Oh,
The one,
pedophile.
the one with pedophile. That's weird. What
we
else?
should we should have asked
Pedo Massacre 9.
we should have asked Steve Souza if he ever played with a pedophile.
Hey, we're on Blabbermouth.
I saw that. I just saw it.
Yeah,
It was last Thursday, and they just put it up now.
Yeah.
nice.
We're famous.
I seen the thing come up about it, but it was all about his shows getting canceled. But I didn't realize it had anything to do with Almost
No,
Human.
no, that's not the story.
Oh,
No, it's talking about him writing a book, possibly,
Yeah.
or something.
huh.
And
I gotta check
Yeah.
that.
yeah, it's very rare. Almost Human gets on Blabbermouth. I'm very underrated. A very underrated channel, and I deserve respect. Damn it!
I think we've been on there like twice, I think. My show's been on there once
I
or
got a
twice.
message. It might be talk amongst yourselves.
Nah, I don't want to
It might be. It might be Neil. Yes, it is. Hi, Ralph. I used Zoom yesterday, but it's installing updates and ready. No. All right. Let me just keep talking. I'm just going to tell them no, we're on the air.
Oh, yeah, good
That
old
show
Zoom
that
updates.
that show that I was telling you about, that New York Hardcore Chronicles channel, they've made Blabbermouth a few times. He had like the guy from Hatebreed that got fired last year, and he was like a founding member, and his first like interview was on that channel. So like Blabbermouth ran with it, and a couple other times he's had guests where they say something and boom, they're on Blabbermouth, and it brings a lot of people to the channel, so it's good.
I'm reading the comments on the Blabbermouth Facebook page under the Steve Souza interview, and they're just all assholes, basically.
They're all saying I'm underrated.
Yeah, just such
Every one of them.
dickheads.
Every one of those comments says Almost Human underrated.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
By the way, I just wrote because Neil said his Zoom is updating and shit, and I wrote, no problem. Take your time. Well, God damn it! Where did I write? I wrote. Oh yeah, I go. No problem. We live now instead of we live.
We live. He thinks this we live now. We live now.
We live now. Wait.
We've come out of our coffins for this. We live now.
Yep. Some good news. Tomorrow, the new Halloween album comes out, and I got my 3 copies already in the mail yesterday.
Yeah, I saw you got. What's the difference in those you have, Wayne?
This is a picture disc. This is an earbook, and this is a limited edition colored vinyl. It's like a purple yellowish color.
What
label are they on now?
Rising Phoenix.
What's an earbook?
Inside there's a big ear, and then it plays the music outside of the ear. It's a
what?
It's a giant digibook.
That's basically all it is. It's just a
digipack.
That's all it is. And then they put the CDs in the back like that.
It's a book.
It's a book. It's kind of stupid, but it's cool because it's it looks like a record. And then I got a signed card.
Earbook. Get the fuck out. ear book.
Better than a rear book, right?
Look,
Well, you go through the
all the
pages and you
CD
play the CD, and it says you will know it's time to turn the page when you hear Kai Hansen's guitar squeal like this.
Celtic Frost got an
I-
earbook. Every time you hear Tom Warren go, ugh, turn the page.
That's it.
I've
Yeah.
never had the money to be the guy that would get like the different versions when it came out. I get like the best one I could get, and
Right.
that's it.
I buy
I'll
buy like the regular version, and then I'll buy one that has like something special about it, like bonus tracks or whatever. But there's a guy on like the Halloween groups. He bought every single version. He's like, I'm waiting the one from Japan. I'm waiting for the ones from Germany. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why do we
Yeah,
need
it's
all
weird.
these different things?
Well, if you can
It doesn't
afford
really
it, I
go-
mean, if you're rich and you
Right.
got nothing better to
And
waste
nothing better
your
to
And
do.
if you're a
money
big
on.
collector of that band, I understand it.
I am a big
Did it
collector.
have it
I
on,
don't need
Yeah.
every color.
Yeah,
did
but
they have it on 8-track, Wayne?
here's
No,
the
not yet.
thing, man. Who are you, man? Let the guy do whatever the
He
fuck.
can do whatever he wants. Yeah, exactly.
You know, I deal with none but kiss twats. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I love them all, and they're
Yeah.
worse than Halloween fans. Not only do
And
they,
they all bought every version of the Peter Chris' last solo record.
from Japan, Austria, Guam, they got all the versions.
Nigeria.
More power to the people that collect the Peter Chris's solo album from around the world. I bet they don't play it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably not. Why? It's probably still sealed.
It looks good sitting on the shelf here,
Yeah,
you know,
and still in a plastic, not open.
still in plastic.
Hell yeah. Those are the people that watch my channel. Those are the people I love.
I picked this up. Oh, I got something else that was pretty cool. I never saw it before.
That's
I
my
think I got-
second favorite. Then
Good.
Liz.
Let me see if I can find it. I think where did I leave it? Where did I leave it? Where did I leave it? I don't know where I left it. Fuck. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Got it.
I wonder, I know I would lose. I know I'm at the bottom, but I wonder between Wayne Ralphus and Tony, who has the most physical media?
Gotta be Tony.
I hope I have the least because I see these people with 13,000 albums in their collection, and there's probably like 1,000 worth owning. Like I could have went to in the 90s, I could have bought up all the fucking vinyl. I don't want that shit clogging up my house. I don't need all this crap. It's like I want to collect the stuff that I want. If
Yeah.
anything, I want to downsize on a lot of it because it's just garbage. Like just clogging up the collection and stuff. But
And it goes in the garage, right, Ralph?
Yeah.
yeah, I have a garage section now for stuff. But I mean, at one point I could have, and even now I find stuff like really cheap. It's like I don't need it. It's like I look at people's 13,000 album collection and I think I wouldn't want 90% of it in my house, or
Yeah.
so.
According to Discogs, I have
Neil's here.
7,600 pieces.
All
I'll talk
right,
about this
he's
later.
here. He's here, Mr. Neil Turbin. Thank you for
He's
joining.
here.
How you guys
Yay.
doing? How's everybody doing?
Hey, man.
What's up? What's
Good.
going
How
on?
are you?
Excellent.
Doing great, man. So, Neil, I understand you got some shows coming up. Is it South America?
We've got actually Brazil and Canada. So we've got an amazing, bunch of shows coming up actually with great band, great, working great with the promoters as well, in the venues directly. So I'm excited to be bringing Armed and Dangerous 40th anniversary show to Brazil, to the Manifesto Bar on September 21st, 2025. So that's going to be a VIP meet and greet, and of course, a very detailed, in-depth show that we're going to play. This is the second time that I've played in Brazil, so we have the opportunity to play at Manifesto Bar, which is a really beautiful venue, and looking forward to that. The first time we were sold out in 2023 when we played at Jai Club back then in Sao Paulo. So we're coming back, and that's exciting for us. The whole band is pumped, and we're ready to thrash and deliver the. Of course, we did Fistful 40, so this is Armed 40. I mean, it only happens once, right? I mean, it's like that's it, right?
Right.
I mean, we're here in this time frame, and it's like Armed and Dangerous's 40th anniversary. I don't know if anybody else is celebrating 40th anniversary of Armed and Dangerous, but these are my songs, and I was part of the band, writing the song. I mean, I guess they liked my song so much that they had another singer sing it after I left, and also they named the album after my song. And actually, I wrote that song in my bedroom, in my room, because rehearsal was so loud. When we were writing Armed and Dangerous, it was quite an experience. So at that time, it's kind of a little bit of an oddball story. So, I was coming to rehearsals. We moved our rehearsals to Yonkers. So we were in the Bronx, area. We used to rehearse in Jamaica, Queens for a long time. But we moved nearer to where the bass and drummer was. And so I would drive over the bridge, the Frog's Neck Bridge, with the rest of the guys, separately. We go independently, but we go over there. And at that rehearsal location, there was other bands playing there. I could get into all that, but staying on point, what happened, the story is that I was coming to rehearsal. We're writing Armed and Dangerous. And of course, there's a power ballady type part at the beginning, right? A power ballad, and then it goes into the heavier part of the song. So we were constructing that, and we were working on that intro part, the beginning of the song. And that's when the guys said to me, two of the prominent members of Anthrax, they said, we want to go hardcore punk. And I'm like, we're working on a power, like a ballady kind of thing. And that was something we never really did. We never really had anything, that resembled that, right? Anything that was mellow at all. So having that with some dynamics was really cool. But they're hitting me with this, we want to go hardcore punk. And I'm like, how do I associate hardcore punk with this ballad part, that has more dynamic singing? And not only that, but I was part of the punk rock scene. I worked at Max's Kansas City when I was 15. I played at CBGB's when I was 15, 16 years old. And, in my first band, The New Race. So I'm trying to understand, because I was a fan already of the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and Generation X and, all the great bands, The Clash, all these great punk bands. I can keep going, there's a long list of them. And I would rub elbows with a lot of these bands. I was there working at Max's, so I hung out there. Wayne County and the Electric Chairs, Neon Leon, and Blondie worked at the same place. Deborah Harry, before my time, of course, in the 70s, way before. But I was at the very end of that at Max's. That's like the end of that whole era there. And so I was part of that punk rock scene. So to be told that, we're going hardcore punk. At that point, what was hardcore punk? I don't even, it's like, okay, you had Agnostic Front, and you had the Cro-Mags, and you had, I get it. New York had a resurgence of these type of bands, and of course other areas. But the same thing happened to metal. It's like if someone tells you, hey Ralph, you ought to get into this new metal stuff, man. You really gotta love it, man. And it's like, well, hello, I've been part of metal since the 80s or even before, from my first Black Sabbath riff, You're telling me about metal in the 2000s or 2010 or whatever, like here, check out this new metal. It's like, I'm sure it's cool to that person. They appreciate it, but like, they already invented this a long time ago. Right. And I was just trying to understand, like, it's basically that it was my idea. So we want to change. We want it to be our idea. We don't want you to use your idea, right? But they ended up using my idea, Armed and Dangerous. Anyway, they called the album that, and then they put Gung Ho on there too, and Raise Hell. So it's like, okay, so I guess we're gonna use your songs, even though we told you we don't like them or we don't want them, and but yeah, we ran out of good ideas. We want to use your idea for the name of the album.
Hey Neil, this shirt is 40 years old. Original vintage Armed and Dangerous shirt. It says cool. Tour 85 on the back, and it's got like a bunch of their like fake autographs. But since you wrote 5 out of the 7 songs, your name should have been up on this shirt too.
Well, thanks. Well, I get it, and I wasn't in the band, but yeah, thank you for that. And what can you say? That's the way of the world. That's the way it works. Things change, band lineups change, and so forth. But the Armed and Dangerous part of it is just, I wrote this ballad intro, like a softer, dynamic intro, and then it gets into the heavier, more repetitive choruses. One of the things that happened on that first album is, there was a lot of, because of the songwriting, the maturity level of the band, I guess there wasn't a lot of these type of songs where it had these home run choruses where it just lands on a chorus and you sing along the chorus. I mean, there was bands that wrote those kind of songs really well. And I think Anthrax at that point was finding its way. And that's how we ended up, early on with the song Panic, how it doesn't really say panic in the song,
Right.
So it's kind of like the thought process. I mean, it's like, here's some riffs, and figure it out. So that's the problem. It's like when you construct a song so it has this theme, or it has this, there's different ways to write a song. But anyway, of course, you mature, you learn. And, with that being said, I've learned from playing these songs for 40 plus years, in some cases 40 plus, but in other cases 40 years, I've learned, what works best for the songs. So I play it in a way that represents, the way the song Armed and Dangerous was written in the first place, because I copywrote the song that I wrote, which was Armed and Dangerous, with the lyrics and the melodies. And that was in 1984, before I left the band. And then they put everybody else's name on it. Like, all of a sudden there was all these different writers, like, the singer, not the singer that replaced me, that joined after Matt Fallon. This was, like a year after, when the other singer joined. So on the album, additional lyrics written by Neil Turbin. It's like, additional lyrics. Well, I have a copyright with Library of Congress. I wrote you have an even
on YouTube right now. There's a Live at L'Amour's 1984 show with Anthrax, and you sing Armed and Dangerous live. So right there shows you singing the song. Like, it was the only time I ever heard that version of you singing it.
Right.
It was before Joey joined.
Yeah, there's also a bootleg out there called Screaming Architects from Hell. It's a pretty rare, cool one. It's got a kind of a crazy album cover, like a icy devil-looking cover with, and it's not a great recording, but it's a live show from Pittsburgh, and we actually played all of the songs. I think at least we played Armed and Dangerous and Gung Ho. I don't know that Raise Hell made it onto that, but I'll have to double check. But they called it something else. I guess, when fans are listening, or enthusiasts, or, music fans are listening, journalists, they're like, they call it, they grab a lyric and they call it something else. So there's some stuff floating out there. But yeah, that song obviously was written before, Matt Fallon joined the band, or Joey joined the band. So, for them to come into the band and then have them put their name on the album, or the lyrics, or in the copyright, is interesting. But also, with that being said, it's also how they divide the money for copyrights, for royalties. So they're giving credit to, all songs written by Anthrax. I know I read an interview with Matt Fallon, who described a similar type of situation where, all songs written by Anthrax. So he said that he had some involvement. I don't know what that is, because I was not in the room, but that's that gives you an idea of how that goes. But it doesn't really matter at this point. For me, I'm just playing my songs the way I wrote them. And as far as the way that I've evolved the songs, some of the songs, they really drag on the album. They're really like, the tuning for me is E flat. I mean, that's where my voice is pitched. So it only makes sense for me to sing where it works best, right? And so that's one of the things that we didn't know back in the days, in the mid to early 80s. So, you learn some stuff. And also the type of playing, like, for me, a lot of heavy metal, especially like the Ramones, dun 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 down, down, it's all down picking, right? It's all down, 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 down. So I'm more of a, there's a value to that type of playing as well, but also alternate picking, where it's down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, up, down, there's more dimensions than one dimension, right? So if you want to break out of that down picking dimension, which a lot of earlier Metallica songs were with that down picking, and I know that there was this great interest to become like Metallica in the band. It wasn't my interest at the time. I mean, I loved the fact that Metallica wrote these amazing riffs, and they had really well done songs, and the band was really talented. I think the band Metallica was growing at the time, on the vocals and on the drums. I think that was a growing area. But on the guitars, I mean, and the bass, I mean, the band was wicked. And on the writing and the lyrics and the melodies, I mean, they were a great band. I mean, obviously, you don't need me to push them, but the idea is that, they were wanting to be Iron Maiden before that, or Judas Priest. So it's like, I got to a point where, yeah, these guys are cool, but I'm not, it's not a vocal like Saxon or Accept or, Unleashed in the East or, Loudness or Warning or Sortilege or, it wasn't Silver Mountain. It wasn't one of these bands that, really had a flair to them. And so for me, having the power metal, the neoclassical, the melodic sense to it. So basically classical music combined with blues. You have blues, which is heavy metal based, obviously the old Black Sabbath and, blues based songs. And then you have progressive, progressive power type of combination. So it's kind of like more on the playing where you have progressive and power meets thrash. So what that actually does is it actually brings together a heavier sound, more speed, and more fierce, intense delivery. So to me, that sounds like what thrash is, to me, that's what thrash is. What they changed thrash to be after, I was not in Anthrax anymore. What I believe the genre kind of morphed into was this, this two-step polka, 1 2 1 2 1 2, grab your partner, dosey, 2 1 2 1 2. That's what it became with a lot of these bands that came after, and not all of them, but there's a lot of that. And then also, of course, it eventually went to the death metal blast beat thing even. But back when I was writing this stuff, I was like, it was more about the Yngwie Malmsteen kind of drum beats, and the thrash metal drum beats. Some of them, were slop, like a lot of, snare drum rolls and, just awkward kind of trying to keep on time and playing too fast. It was like, like they're trying to chase after a train that got away, or a bus. So for me, I just feel like, I wanted to, present a sound that represented, what I envisioned the thrash metal genre to be. And, when we're talking about that, I'm saying, when I wrote Metal Thrashing Mad, it's like, what are we, metal? What are we doing? We're thrashing. And it's complete madness, at the shows, the essence, the vibe of what was out there, what we would experience. So that's kind of what, I wanted to express in the music. And, when you have a song that is maybe not the top song on the album, it's a little bit dragging. So I try to grab a song like that and how do we make this the best song on the album? How do we make this better than it is? Because it's kind of like here, this is a song we take the bathroom break, we go get some popcorn and a beer. So, I mean, you can look at any album and say, okay, that's the song that I'm going to get the popcorn. I'm going to the bathroom on this one. I need a beer. This is the song I'm going to walk away and, leave it behind. So to me, my focus was grabbing those songs first and let's make this one, having a method so you can raise the bar, lift up that song, some levels. And so what I've done is gone through every single song on Fistful of Metal, Armed and Dangerous, Spreading the Disease that I was part of, that I either sang on, that I wrote, co-wrote, that I was involved with. Songs that I wasn't involved with, no need to deal with that. God Save the Queen, I had nothing to do with that song. It has nothing to do with me, and not only that, it has nothing to do really with Anthrax, except they covered it. So I don't think they play it, but it happens to be on the album. But yeah, I mean, there's no need to go there, right? But from my standpoint, I want to do songs that the fans know I did, and even if they didn't know I did them, that's what I'm doing. Anyway, I didn't mean to elaborate so much, but I thought it was something to put out there. I know I went for a while.
It's all right. Hey, we love having you on the show. I love hearing all these stories, so it's cool.
I have two questions, Neil.
Yeah, and also I wanted to ask you guys, I know last time when we had a conversation a year ago, we never got to get to the fan questions, but maybe we could bring those in if there's any.
There's been a couple I've been wanting to get in there, yeah.
But go ahead, Ralph. I'm sorry to interrupt.
After I want to go back to the Greg Wall era.
Sure.
Two things about it. The first, man, there's pro shot video of you guys during that part. And the second question is, you were talking about, you know, all these people getting credited on Anthrax song. He claimed he didn't get credit on anything, and he wrote like Panic, and you were around back then.
Well, I mean, I don't want to overstate or understate. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, you're talking about some pretty old, you know, we're past the statute of limitations, right? And we're talking about deep, old memories, right? So, but clearly, the part that goes, now, clearly that was Greg Walls. Okay, so on Panic. So he clearly wrote that on Panic, and you know, Dan Lilker was more involved in writing. I think you know, Dan and Scott were the buddy system, and you know, so they kind of, you know, Dan did come up with some ideas, you know, but he didn't write nowhere near, you know, an entire song. He wasn't responsible for writing an entire song, because you would have a song without any lyrics, and it would have no melodies on the vocals, and it wouldn't have the arrangements, because the arrangements came together once the vocals were applied. You know, hey, we're going to repeat this chorus, or we're going to do something. There wasn't really a very sophisticated writing methodology, because at that time, you know, what you basically had is you had, you know, kind of an idea of like, hey, let's be like Metallica. Hey, let's be like Iron Maiden. You know, it's like, you know, I went through those phases when I was in my preteens or something, or early teens. You know, it's like, okay, well, yeah, it'd be cool to be like Robin Zander. And then I realized, oh gosh, you know, my throat hurts. What? Everything he does is singing out of his voice box right here in his throat. He doesn't pitch it up in his sinus area. He doesn't, you know, put it deep in his chest. You know, everything is from the throat. You know, we're all right. So I was thinking, hey, Robin Zander, I mean, great singer. I met him when I was 15 at the Parker Meridian Hotel with one of these paparazzi guys when I was, you know, hanging out with the guy. And we went to the Cheap Trick concert at Madison Square Garden, and it was like, wow. First, we went to the hotel, and he was there in the elevator with him and Tom Peterson. I was like, this is like surreal, you know, like In Color, Black and White, the album from Cheap Trick. I was like, I'm in the elevator with the guys from Cheap Trick. But I'm just bringing that up because it's like, okay, yeah, I wanted to be like Robin Zander, and I met him, and I'm like, yeah, I don't sound like him, and yeah, it's not really the way I sing, but I learned these things, you know. I kind of like got a kick in the pants. It's like, whoa, you know, like what he does, and then seeing him at Madison Square Garden, the way he commanded the stage, it's like, oh boy, you know, I got a long way to go. There's a lot to do here, and I still don't sound like him. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like you want to worship your heroes and all that, and bow down to them and look up to them. But, you know, you really have to come to a point where it's like, okay, well, you know, I don't ride the motorcycle that way. I ride it this way. You know, I can't put my hands way up here. I got to hold them over here. You know, it's like, you know, everybody's different, right? You want to really do what feels natural for you. And I think that's really you come to a point where you come into your own, you know, that's what it is. Where you come into your own sound, your own confidence of what you do, and hopefully you get there. I mean, it takes a lot of mistakes to you know, that's why they call it practice, right?
You know, I gotta say, I've met Neil, and I told him this personally. You know, like Anthrax was so different to me, because what you were saying earlier, that sound like Metallica. I hear, you know, later on they're getting a little more thrashy, a little more crunchy. Where Fistful of Metal to me is like, there's no other Anthrax album like that album. And it's how I discovered, man, I should have pulled out the album. I want to show you some, you know, how I discovered you guys. I'll pull out the album in a second. Was my favorite compilation album of all time is an album called Metal Hammer.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, it has, I got turned on to so many bands on that. Raven and
Cloven Hoof.
Yeah, Cloven Hoof is on there. Thunder Fire. I mean, some great stuff. And Metal Thrash and Mad is the last song. That's how I discovered Anthrax.
Metallica's on that one, I believe.
Yeah, they do. Motor Breath is on there from Metallica. Yeah, it's called Metal Hammer. It's an amazing compilation. But my point is that love or hate, whatever. I'm not bashing later Anthrax, but there's something about that first album because also timeline's everything. And I bought that in 1984. Like soon after I bought that compilation, I bought that album. So that's like the Anthrax I knew. And then when it changed, it didn't have the same vibe that Fistful had. I don't think. That's my
First
opinion.
album straight up metal. It's a
Yeah,
metal
it's
album.
more metal, but there is some thrashy and like Panic and Death from Above, probably my favorite out there. But hey, how about the fans out there? Yeah, any questions?
Let me just say this to add to what you're saying real quick, and then we'll get some fan questions and that from the audience or the folks that are out there on the web. So losing my train of thought here. Sorry, man. It's been a lot of nonstop interviews and stuff, for the cycle since I'm going, also to Canada. I wanted to talk about that too.
I was talking about the sound of Fistful of Metal, how it's different than the later stuff.
Yeah. So here's my point. I just recalled that came back from the memory banks, and that is Riot. Okay, so you had Fire Down Under. So I can completely relate to what you're saying as a fan, Ralph, because what I experienced is, I was one of the biggest Riot fans. Fire Down Under, Rock City, all that. Guy Speranza fan. I love the versions of Riot, and I had the opportunity to meet some of the older Riot guys, and that was really a thrill for me. I was friends with Red Forrester back in the 80s, and he even referred a guitar player to us, which was more of a rock player, and I hung out with Red in the Village and in Queens and so forth. But before that, I went to see Riot, and I was a big fan, and it was a big letdown for me, even though Red is a great singer, great frontman. But I was really let down because I really wanted to see Fire Down Under lineup. I never got to see that exact lineup. I saw it with Red, but not with Guy Speranza. He kind of was out of there quick. And, Riot did a lot of stuff early on. I mean, they did a lot of touring. They did a lot of great work early on. They did even more after Red joined the band. But it was like, for me, it was a big change in sound. It's kind of like you went from a super new wave of British heavy metal, but it's American metal sounding band with Guy Speranza to Rhett Forrester, which was more of like the soulful, bluesy, more Paul Rogers, more, there's more of that soulful element, a different kind of melodic element. Guy Speranza had a different edge. So for me, adjusting to that, and we could think of a lot of bands that had that happen to them, where it may not have been the same as Riot, but it was a big change from one singer to the other singer. So I think what probably people experienced was something that might have resembled that in some way. I experienced that with Riot because I was like, man, if I could have just heard the next Guy Speranza Riot versions of songs, the next batch of songs that they were going to write, that would have made it the cherry on top, But we didn't get there. But we got, some other cool stuff, and there was other, you had the same band except for the singer, but it really was a different band. It really changed things drastically and sound-wise for me. And I still love the band, but I think that's maybe what some fans might have experienced. And I think at that point, I was thinking we're part of the team. We're going to make this thing. This is for the greater good. The band and other folks were focused on emotions and egos and what their egos were driving. And for me, I just wanted to do the best music I could do, and that's all I'd try to do, And I just, there's a couple of things, loyalty, trust, respect. You have to have those things in a relationship, otherwise it's pretty toxic. So, I came in with an open heart, and I just, gave of myself, gave of my spirit. How can I be of service? How can I work with you guys? And I was exposed to things that I never even knew people did. I didn't even know manipulations that were like beyond whatever I was naive. What can I say? I never knew that people would do this stuff, but but I learned quick and the hardest way. And, you know, when you have that kind of scenario happening, it becomes very constrictive when it comes to writing. So that is really, you know, it was like a challenge. Like I was writing music and ideas and lyrics like Armed and Dangerous and Metal Thrashing Mad, but it wasn't a contest. It wasn't like me and Tony Leonard saying, hey, you know, I'm wearing a Vicious Rumors shirt and I want to wear blue. You want red. You know, it's like, you know, look, whatever looks best for the band is what we should go with, right? Whatever's best. But I'm wearing blue, man. It's blue logo and white. You know, that's, you know, I'm pushing my way, right? You want to push blue and white. It's like, do we really want to do that? I mean, is that, and then they end up saying, oh, well, we wanted to use red. It's like, what? Red? That's what I had on. Yeah, we as a band decided we're using red. It's like, okay, but that was my idea in the first place. Why did we argue about it? You know, it's that kind of thing. So anyway, I digress. Let's go to the your questions and some listeners.
What's going on in the chat room?
Actually, you were talking about you're going to be touring in Canada, and somebody asked, are you going to be touring anywhere in the Northeast of America?
Well, the Northeast for me is where they, you know, I go where the love is. If there ain't no love in the heart of the city, then I guess we can stay in the country. But, you know, I'm going to be playing in October, October 10th, 11th, and 12th. So we're playing on October 10th at the, I want to make sure I got this right. So we're playing the Brass Monkey October 10th in Ottawa. It's just outside of Ottawa, Canada. And then October 11th, we'll be playing in Montreal at Piranha Bar. And October 12th, I'll be playing at the Rock Pile in Toronto. So that one's on a Sunday. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're doing a run in Canada. So I played in Canada one time. One time we played at Le Forum, which I believe is now some kind of development, you know, but it was a great music venue, a great rock venue back in the day. And we also we went to Canada, we played that show. We also had another show, which was in Quebec City. And that show, we actually walked into the venue. We got off the bus, we were in a bus, and we got stopped at the border. And, you know, the band looked like, you know, long-haired hippies. So, I mean, they stopped us and wanted to look at everything. And I had some vitamins, you know, I had some supplements that were, I didn't bring like 20 bottles of vitamins. So I wrapped them in tinfoil. What did I know? You know, I just put them all for like, here, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, 7 days, whatever, however long we're gone. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, you know. I mean, we're talking like oil of evening primrose. It didn't look like it was some kind of contraband, you know. It was like oil in a capsule, some vitamin E, you know, some stuff like that, some different things that, you know, because I wasn't getting very much food when I toured before with Anthrax. I mean, you know, I was lucky to get a per diem of $5 to go to Denny's, and that was my meal for the day, like all day. So that was the pay that I got from Anthrax, a per diem to go to Denny's, because that was the only place we pretty much stopped, unless it was some other place. And so, you know, I went to a nutritionist at that point. My family was concerned, and it's like, okay, we'll send you here, and you know, you get some supplements. So at least you could have vitamins in you, even if you can't eat properly, because that was a treatment. So I did that, and we were able to, you know, bring some supplements. Of course, you know, when we got to the border, it's like, oh, what is this? You know, they're looking through everything. I mean, they're looking through people's duffel bags. They're looking through people's suitcases. They're hoping to find something. You know, they want to say, oh, you know, you guys look like hippies and you're all guilty of something. It's like, yeah, I had to take vitamins. Yeah. Vitamin C. Yeah. It's some dangerous stuff, you know? So anyway,
people overdose on it.
So I'm in the back room, you know, for a little longer because I had these vitamins that were wrapped up, and they're looking at it like, okay, they had a book that was this size, you know, it was like a phone, like a double phone book. It had every pill and everything that you could ever imagine. So they're like, okay, oil of evening primrose, vitamin E, vitamin C. It's printed right on the tablet, you know. I mean, they knew what it was. They didn't have computers back then, but they knew what it was. And so after about, you know, 30, 40 minutes with me, they let me go. So I was in that room, you know, they're looking at my vitamins. I didn't have any contraband, you know. I had my metal gloves and my chaps and my leather and my vest and stuff. I mean, a lot of metal, but not belts. But it wasn't, you know, anything illicit or anything. And you know, but I got blamed. And you know, I've read in interviews where it was even blamed by Raven, you know, saying stuff. Oh, Neil Turbin, this, that, and the other. It's like, okay, really? Okay, fine. You know, blame Neil for everything. I'll be the scapegoat for all your problems. But I did write Metal Thrashing Mad and Armed and Dangerous, so, and Gung Ho, and Panic,
At least you got that.
and Death Rider. So
I really think you should come to the Northeast. I think you got more fans than you think you do.
Oh
Well,
yeah, I think.
well, I
very
mean, I
well.
should come to the Northeast, but who's paying for it, and where's the promoter?
Well, who's paying you to get to Canada? You can get to Canada. You can come to New York.
Well, they're
All right,
they're-
get to Brooklyn. Get here.
the promoter is paying for and arranging for me to play those shows. So
Yeah.
that's how it works. I mean, you know, you don't go to
I
work
know.
and pay your bills by not getting paid for it, right? So
Tell
it's
them to
easy-
get you over to New York.
It's
all right?
it's easy for me to say, hey, why doesn't this band or that band come over here and play in LA? Well, you know, who's paying for the gas and who's paying for them to
Yeah, no,
who's
I know
paying
that.
for the room?
Man, they should
And who's
have
paying the
you
fee?
on the they
Who's
should
paying the
have you
fee
on the
for each
Hell's
band member?
Heroes Fest.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tony.
I said they should have you on the Hell's Heroes Fest they do out in Houston every year. I mean, just playing the, you know, early Anthrax stuff. It would go over great.
Well, you know, that's you know, if they're interested, then they can contact me. But I mean, I go where the love is. I mean, the love has been in Latin America. The love has been in Canada. The love is, I mean, in the U.S. I don't know. Do people listen to rock music anymore? I mean, they've been force fed a bunch of other music, and people don't even get it. You know, you know, these corporations. You know, everything is independent, so they put it. You know, independent folks put it out on the internet, but corporations are the ones that have big radio stations or have big media. It's not little guys. You know, it's big corporate or conglomerate type entities. And unfortunately, there's a social or political agenda attached to those things as well. And also, also not just the socio, but the political agenda, like who's there, who, you know, who are they trying to push? And, you know, I think without getting into naming names and stuff, but if you look at some of these big companies that, you know, one company in the old days would have been William Morris or some of these big agencies. But, you know, which one is the BlackRock of, you know, of the music industry? Those are the artists you know, if you're connected like that, that's what's being pushed. And it's interesting how that works because I'm just an independent guy. You know, I'm just doing what I love and do from passion. You know, I'm not doing it because, you know, like if someone wants to give me the opportunity, the chance, then I get to prove myself all over again. And that's where we're at. I mean,
And that's
every
what
time,
you need. Yeah.
every time I do a show, every time I get on stage, you know, there's someone, oh, what have you done since you left Anthrax? Well, I don't know. Not much, except toured all over the world. I mean, yeah, I played a lot of countries. I mean, yeah, I'm not touring like, you know, Madonna or like Lady Gaga, but yeah, we're out there. And, you know, I toured in 2024. I played, you know, 5 countries in Latin America. I've been to Brazil in 2023. You know, we went to Honduras. I played in Romania with the guys from Whitesnake and Bon Jovi and Ripper and, you know, Ripper Owens and Gilby Clarke and you know, Joe Hoekstra and Phil X and Teddy Zigzag and Simon Wright. And, you know, we played a stadium. So yeah, I've been doing a few things. I mean, I played, I co-wrote with Frankie Banali and Neil Citron, you know, for Quiet Riot, 2 songs on their last album, Hollywood Cowboy. So, I mean, I've been doing a few things. I was on the Thor album a few years back. You know, we're doing stuff. I mean, it's like, do I have a business agent that's doing all the stuff for me? No, it's all direct. You know, I'm doing it all myself. Like nobody's doing it for me. And when people say, oh, just come on out, you know, come on out and play in our backyard. Come on out and play in our living room. It's like, well, okay, how am I getting there, and where am I staying, and you know, who's paying for it? Like, because I got to pay the band. It's not even about me. It's like I got to pay my guys, you know. And
people don't realize that.
And people think that it's so easy, but you know, trying to retain a band. I mean, people like Ozzy Osbourne, God rest his soul, you know, he had to have a band and he had to pay his guys. You know, he had to, it's like, if they weren't touring, then the guys weren't getting paid. Maybe back in those days, maybe they got a retainer or something, but you know, the band's got to get paid. And if they're not playing with your band, they're going to play with another band. You know, that's kind of how it works, right? And that's why these like studio musicians or these players, you know, they play with multiple artists because they want to work. And that's really what we're doing. We're working because the music industry is so different than what it might have been in the past. I mean, if you're not working, then you're just choking. You know, you got to work. You got to be working. And what have I, you know, answering that question that I brought up, what have you been doing since Anthrax? Well, you know, I also have been playing for a year now with Simon Wright and with, you know, Scott Page, who played sax for Pink Floyd and Supertramp. Simon, of course, comes from AC/DC and Dio Disciples and Queensryche and UFO. And I mean, amazing drummer, amazing guy. And, you know, also Sean McNabb. You know, I've played with Sean in so many different jams and different things. And, you know, we're playing regularly for the last year doing Larson's Steakhouse. There's a whole chain of these upscale, amazing restaurants. And, you know, Robert Sarzo is the one who put this together. And I've been working with Robert on this for, you know, a year, being part of it. And I'm, you know, blessed to have the opportunity. I've known Robert since 1985. I went to when they did a showcase back in 85 for Hurricane. So I met Robert and then we worked together in the early 80s. We knew each other. We never had the opportunity to play together. And as it turns out, Robert is quite a fascinating, he's a fascinating guy. You should have him on your show because, you know, he was chosen to play with Ozzy to replace Randy Rhoads. He was in the band rehearsing with him. The only issue is that Don Arden over in Britain, he hired Bernie Torme and paid him and flew him to the US, but Robert was already in LA working with Ozzy. So that has to be the biggest heartbreak, you know. I mean, his brother was in the band and then, you know, here's a chance to work with his brother and they've played together, you know, in other bands. So it was like a good, and the thing is Robert is really a humble guy. You know, he's very soft-spoken. He's not like, oh, look at me. He's really the kind of guy that, you know, if you hear us playing, you know, we're playing a lot of different material. We're playing the hard, heavy stuff. We're playing Dio songs and Sabbath, but we're also playing, you know, some R&B songs, some Stevie Wonder, some Gary Moore. And when Robert plays the stuff, it's like, wow. I mean, he just has an amazing tone, amazing feel, you know. I mean, what an outstanding player. I mean, people don't know how amazing he is. And I think he would have done a great job for Ozzy had he kept that, you know, had Ozzy kept him in the lineup. But it's like, that's politics of bands, you know, and we didn't know that was going on. You know, now we do, but we didn't know it back then. And, you know, when I saw Ozzy, I saw him at the Ritz. That was one of the shows I saw when Ozzy had a book of lyrics on the stage on a chair, and he had no hair, I think. And you know, he had Brad Gillis on that show. And, you know, when I was going to all these things, I played with Rudy. I even auditioned for the band Driver. So I played with Tommy Aldridge and Rudy and Kurt James in that audition. And I'd known Rudy ever since. You know, I'd you know, see him here and there, but then I got to play with him finally, you know, years later at the Randy Rhoads Remembered. So it was a great experience for me. And then, you know, becoming more friendly with him, you know, doing more events where I was interacting with Rudy. You know, I told him about it, and I expressed, you know, what happened, man. Why wasn't Robert in the band? Or the fact that, you know, Randy Rhoads, you know, when he played his guitar chords, it was like a bolt of lightning from heaven. It's like, you know, it you know, the harmonics echoed off the top of the roof at the Nassau Coliseum, and it like came back down at me like a bolt of lightning. You know, he's hitting these harmonics. It was surreal. It was more than just music. It was like this energy that was just an energy transfer. Like, whoa, you know, like, and I was 16 years old or something. And I was like, holy smokes, what's going on here? This is not. So
you've seen the Speak of the Devil show, the actual Speak of the Devil show.
I was there.
That was at the Ritz.
I was there at Black and Blue when they recorded at Nassau Coliseum.
Oh wow.
Blue Oyster Cult, Black Sabbath, till 4 in the morning. Mm-hmm. My mom had to come pick me up at the parking lot. I mean, I was like 15 at that one. 1980.
You worked at the Ritz too, I heard, right?
I did.
Right when they were
Yes, I
open.
saw a lot of bands there.
I got lucky because I mean I would have
You got
loved to,
rookie?
I would have loved to see the Black and Blue tour, but when it came here, it was Black Sabbath with Riot, and
Oh, you got lucky. That's got to be, you're the man then.
I saw the Narita tour, and then I saw Fire Down
Wow.
open for Rush,
Oh,
and
you're lucky. Yeah, they had the good shows then.
Riot never came back. I never seen him with Rhett Forrester. Riot's only been here, as far as I know, twice with with Guy Speranza.
I mean, I've seen video footage from My Father's Place or some other shows that they did.
Yeah.
And I think
Highly
as a frontman, as a singer, I love Guy Speranza. I think as a frontman, there's no contest. Red Forrester's the man on the his presence, but Guy Speranza was great, and I think that I would have really enjoyed to see him. But I think for as far as a show, it's like, how are you going to compare a David Lee Roth type frontman to Sammy Hagar? I guess.
Any more questions, Wayne?
Yeah, I didn't even get to him yet because
Go,
someone
go.
here keeps going and going and going, Neil.
Yeah, it must be me.
Someone asked
actually,
about
I
his
wanted to
solo
ask you
record.
something. Yeah, but I wanted to ask you. Last time you were here, you were talking about how you were re-recording a lot of the songs off of the first album. Is it still going on?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're not on the clock where people are pushing. I mean, there's a lot of things that can get in the way. There's.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be realistic. I mean, I'm not 21, so, and I have to do other stuff. I can't do it 24/7. And also, I have other people involved as well that also have lives as well. So, we're working at it, and it's getting done, and we're moving through. It's a mountain of songs. There's a lot of songs going in there, and but we're getting through it, and we're getting past the middle point, of getting all the songs complete, done. But there's also the vocals and getting some of the solos or some things right. I mean, we're not trying to copy. We're not trying to replicate exactly everything.
Yeah.
That's not what we're doing. So what we're doing is we're trying to take it to the next place. And
I hope you add.
Sure,
That's a challenge.
I hope you add Armed and Dangerous on there.
Oh yeah, that's on there for sure.
Right.
But like I was explaining a little earlier, that we want to take a song that maybe is lukewarm, and we want to make it not just warm. We want to make it boiling hot. We want to make it burning hot. So it's easy to say things like that, but how do you do it actually? How do you physically? How do you kinetically make it boiling hot? How do you put sizzle into it? How do you make it really appeal to you? How do you take a song off of an album, and the one that's the least listened to, your least favorite, how do we make it your favorite? Even better than the hit song on the album or the best song. And
I got to tell you, my favorite covers sound nothing like the original.
say that again.
My favorite covers are cover songs that sound nothing like the original. You know what I mean? A new spin.
People think that certain songs are untouchable, or you can't change it, or you can't do anything. And there's certain pieces of it that you want to leave alone. You don't want to change important, memorable melodies or certain things that really are, the character of the song. But there's ways of doing songs that give it a character. Now, I'll use this as an example. There's a version of "Satisfaction" by the Rolling Stones. Now, I think everybody knows how that song goes. But there was a version that Aretha Franklin did with Keith Richards. And that version, to me, is my favorite version. It sounds totally different than the 60s sounding version of the Rolling Stones. But this one is much more soulful. It's much more like dynamic, and the vocal is incredible. And, Aretha did an amazing job with it. And I think there's songs like that where songs lend themselves to being able to be updated or changed in a way that is uplifting. So there's a version of Bohemian Rhapsody, and of all songs, you listen to that song. I mean, I think most people are familiar with Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's a masterpiece. Without a doubt, one of the most iconic songs in history, in rock music, in any music. However, the idea or the thought that, oh, you can't make that song your own. You can't own that song and make it your own. It was Freddie Mercury. How could you own a song like that? Well, yeah, you're probably right. You can't own that song. You can't make it your own. But lo and behold, there was a young singer, a female singer. I'm not sure if she was from Ireland or from, that part of the world. On one of these shows, one of these talent shows, she was like 14 or 15 years old or something like that. And she sang Bohemian Rhapsody in this very, demure kind of folkish sort of way. But it was so brilliant and so on point that it's like, I know the guys in Queen heard it as well. I mean, it was all over media. I mean, you could look it up on a search. But it was so cool because it was a different take on it. And, that's what it's all about. I think it's about not trying to be Freddie Mercury, not trying to be Queen, but, giving it your own spin on it. And sometimes you really hit the jackpot. It's really a great thing. But there's certain songs that you just don't want to touch. And, to me, I would have said, yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody, I don't know. I would pick a different song if I wanted to, try to make it my own.
The guy from Ghost just did that cover of that live, and it was pretty bad.
Yeah, Howl's Eve did a cover of Sheer Heart Attack, and it made me a fan of the original Queen version because I loved so much of the Howl's Eve version because I was a young kid as a thrasher, and it made me, when I heard the original, I was like, oh, I love this. And I got to say, it's the same thing when I'm 18. I know it wasn't the song that you wanted to play on Fistful of Metal, but I seen Alice Cooper for the first time with Megadeth on Peace Sells, and we were kind of there more for Megadeth. But I knew the 18 song because of Anthrax's version at that time, and it made me love the original too.
Right.
So
Actually made me want to go check out Alice Cooper because I was like, if Anthrax is covering Alice Cooper, then Alice Cooper must be cool, and I gotta check out Alice Cooper.
Yeah. So on that, I wanted to just say two quick things. One being AC/DC, for example, like Highway to Hell. I mean, that's a song which we all, I think, know and love. Most of us, especially.
Yeah, I'm wearing the
You got the shirt. Yeah. So, Wayne, so what I was going to say is that Highway to Hell, I mean, it's complete Bon Scott, vibe. And I don't know how you make that song your own. I mean, everything about that song, it's got the Bon Scott, kind of limerick humor vibe. It's got his attitude. It's got this fury and fierceness to it. It's got this biting in the lyrics. I mean, in the delivery, it's just, gnarly.
Yep.
How do you change it? I think when people sing that song, when a band plays it, it always sounds like it wants to be AC/DC. It never sounds like, oh, here's something totally different. Like they're playing the jazz version. I've never heard that. So there's certain songs that you just, I mean, not that it couldn't be done. They did it with Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, yeah, it's possible. But I think there's certain songs that lend themselves to, being more of a song that you can take it and, turn it into your version, So
Brian Johnson won't even do Long Way to the Top. It's a long way to the top for rock and roll. He won't even do it. He never did it because he said it was such a connection to Bon. Like it just like he even though he's in AC/DC, he didn't want to do it because it was such a connection to him. So that's one of those songs you just
I think that is an AC/DC song that you just don't want to touch. But I think part of that is the bagpipes. I mean, part of it is like Bon would play the bagpipes. That is his thing. And I think that, it's almost like a Rolling Stones song. If it's got a harmonica, and the singer was playing it, and you're a singer that doesn't play harmonica, that makes it kind of like, okay, so if you're going to do a Stevie Wonder song, Isn't She Lovely? It's got harmonica all over the place, and it's Stevie playing it. So, and you want to cover that song. Well, you could do it, but, if you don't know how to play harmonica, it's going to be a little awkward, and it'll leave a little bit to be desired if you're doing it without that important part of the song. So I think
I've seen an AC/DC cover band where they had a woman come out do the bagpipe part, and it was cool. It didn't need to be the singer doing it, but
yeah, I mean, it's such a great song, but I get it. It's like there's just certain songs you want to kind of, I mean, there's other songs you can choose, and that's why I'm 18 was like, of all songs, you could have picked Schools Out, or you could have picked, I another Alice Cooper song or another band for that matter. And I loved Alice Cooper, but it was just
Under My Wheels would have been a perfect song for Anthrax
yeah,
to
you
do
know,
back
something
then,
that
I
had
think.
more
That would have
of
been
that kind of appeal.
that would have fit better.
But I
Yeah.
mean, that was a pick by the label. I mean, that was John Zazula and Marcia Zazula. They decided that song, and you know, Scott said, "This is a song we're doing." I'm like,
Hmm.
"What about?" And I said, "What about If You Want Blood?" AC/DC says, "We're doing I'm 18." And I read in interviews over the years that he said he never played on it. I'm like, well, wait a second. I stayed up in Ithaca. I was up in Cortland, New York for 30 days. I was there for the whole time. I was the only one in the band that actually stayed up there because I didn't want to be in the car with the guys riding back to Queens every time. You know, it was just too much to be locked in a car with them for that long. I mean, it was just, we took one ride and it was such an experience, and it wasn't necessarily the band's fault. What happened is as you know, we went to Rochester to Music America Studios, and they were pulling out the mixing board as we were walking down the stairs. The mixing board was going the other way, so we slept on the cold floor for 3 nights in the winter time. And we're up in Rochester. We had nowhere to go. We ended up at this other studio in Elmira. Then we finally ended up at Pyramid Studios in Ithaca. So it was like a journey, and like we were already there for almost a week, half a week, and we're okay, we got a studio. Now we're in Ithaca, and it's like, okay, Johnny Z worked it out so I could stay with these ladies that had this house where all the bands would stay, and so I stayed up there. That's where Metallica was hanging out before. Or actually, no, I think Metallica or Raven stayed there, and then we stayed at the same place, except I stayed for a lot longer. I stayed for a month. And, it was cool because the brother of Craig Gruber, the bass player from Gary Moore and from Rainbow, his brother Keith, was staying at the same house. He was up there, living there. He was one of the roommates there, so, I got to hang out with him, and, he's a guitar player and a great guy too. And so I would go ride up with Carl Kennedy to Pyramid every day. So I would be there during the whole process. And I was there for almost a month, or a whole month. At the end, that's when I got to sing for 2 days, barely 2.5 days to do the vocal. So I was there for the whole process. So I witnessed Scott playing I'm 18, but he said he never played on it. So go figure. But I, he played on all the songs. He would be one that would insist to play on every song. Like it's his band, right? I'm playing on this, what is he gonna do? Not play on a song that's going on the album? That makes zero sense, right? But I was there and I saw it with my own eyes and I heard it with my own ears. So, but it's so interesting how, people could say whatever they want for an interview. The sky is green. Look up, the sky is green. No, it's blue. Well, blue is green now. It's 2025. Anything goes, Whatever lies however we want to get your brain, brainwash you with this. The sky is green. Like, I look at the sky, it's not green. To me, it's always blue. Maybe it's gray, but it sure the hell ain't green, unless you're in, Sweden or something. The land of, it stays
Or Borealis. Yeah.
Yeah, Aurora Borealis. Yeah,
Hey, Neil,
maybe there is a green sky, but not where I'm looking. Not in LA.
Neil, I got one question for you. I wanted to ask you. How'd you get involved on the Cooney album? Did you go to Japan and record your parts?
No, but the way that went down is I had a roommate in Hollywood, so I was living. I was trying to stay in California. In 1985, I come out on my own and trying to figure out how I can financially swing it, make it work. In those days, things were different, on a lot of levels, without getting into that conversation. So what ended up happening, I was staying with friends. I stayed with Lucy Forbes. I stayed with a family member when I first came out. Then I eventually got a roommate. So he had a place already in Hollywood, West Hollywood, near the Rainbow. So I became a roommate, and I was in the living room of this apartment that he had. He had the bedroom, I had the living room, The only problem is that there was a bazillion cockroaches. The place was completely infested. I mean, I smoked the place out with all kinds of, bombs and traps. But I mean, this place was so infested that, you could start a roach farm there. It was just insane. I mean, the size of these roaches, you could saddle them up and ride them to Texas. I mean, they were just insane. And so it was Cooney's Cockroach Palace. That's what I called it. But I mean, he had the guys from Loudness coming over. The thing that was interesting about Cooney is I had these demo tapes. I was auditioning through Lucy Forbes for all these bands. So I auditioned for this band, Carrie Sharaf. He was the guitar player for Billy Squier. He was a guitar solo player. And Carrie, had these amazing songs. He had Mark Bowles singing for him. And I had this demo tape that was incredible, and Mark sounded great on it. It's like, this is before Yngwie. And I'm like, why is this not on the radio? Why is this not like killing it out there? Mark was out of the project. Who knows what went wrong, but it didn't happen. But I'd play the song, I was practicing to it, and Cooney would hear me playing this tape, and he wanted a copy of it. So guess what happened? One of the songs that was on that Carrie Sharaf demo, instead of Mark singing it, Cooney played it on his album after I was not with Cooney anymore. And then he had Jeff Scott Soto sing it, Memories of You. But there's an amazing version of Mark Bowles singing it on the demo that should have been a hit song on the radio. And I'm like, so he took my tape, and he took my tape, and then he took the song and he recorded it. And I guess he got the rights to it, or he got permission to do it. Harry Fox Agency, pay a fee and do it as a cover. So he ended up putting that on his album, and it's like, the tapes that I had, he heard that. And I also auditioned for Vinnie Vincent Invasion. I auditioned for Driver, Rudy Sarzo, Tommy Aldridge. I met with Jeff Nichols from Black Sabbath in his hotel room, over by the Holiday Inn off of Highland back in those days. And that was when I guess it was Seventh Star, after Glenn Hughes was kind of in and out of the band. And also around that same time, maybe even earlier, I was at Bill Ward's house. I met with Bill Ward, and what a great guy, and that was an interesting experience. That's when, Glenn was out of the band, and but Bill was out of the band too. Bill was doing Ward 1. He was doing his own thing. That was even before his first album, solo album came out. So I met with him, and I was a little bit young, a little bit green, a little naive. So I can understand, the issue at that point in time is that if you're talking about Jeff Nichols or Bill Ward or the entire lineup that was in Tony's band, Tony Iommi. I mean, first of all, I'm not considering myself that I even had a go at it. I just met with Jeff Nichols. But these guys were all like at least 10 years older than me. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different generation. It's like if you think about the next generation, like your older brother or sister, your uncle or your aunt, your parents, like, it's like auditioning for them. Like, okay, Tony, go ahead and impress me, man. I'm, 10 or 15 years or 20 years older than you. You're going to sing? Go ahead. What do you got? Oh, you it's like they already have a certain level of expectation. And there's guys out there like Ronnie James Dio, and people that are established like Ozzy Osbourne. And people with a name, and it's like, you sang with Anthrax, that's nice, but we got these other guys coming at us, So you're in the world of competition, and at that point in time, it was really, pre-internet days, pre-computer days. You're really trying to get your foot in the door somewhere with the right people, and it really was who just to give you a shot. It's like, who gives you a chance? So that also correlates to where you play. Like, oh yeah, why don't you come and play the East Coast? Well, do I know someone that's a top booking agent or a top promoter that's going to make this happen on a business level? Are they going to, the band's got to get paid. People don't do this stuff for free. It's like, it'd be nice to be able to, if you got a nice bus that you can send over right away, and have a budget, we can get the band to, take time off so they can go play. They have to do other things. You know what I mean? And in some cases, is there a band? Because it costs money. You have to have money to be in a band these days. It's not like, when bands play, a lot of bands are paying to play, or they're paying a fee, or it's just there's a financial aspect to it. So and also a time aspect. When you're not 21, it's like, well, there's families, there's other responsibilities. If you got children, you got to pay for them. Wife and kids, like you got to take care of those bills and pay those fees. Rehearsal rooms aren't free. Equipment's not free. Strings aren't free. Sticks, cymbals are real expensive. Drums, shit breaks, you got to fix it. And so that's what we're really looking at. It's like the people that had it differently back in the 80s, when you could afford better to do these things in the 2025 era, it's like it's a very high-end luxury to have nice equipment. Imagine having a Gibson Les Paul in 2025, when a burrito costs $20. Driving it, how about this one? I just heard this one. Driving into Manhattan, $50 to get to Manhattan.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
Like I went to Manhattan, I take the train, I get the bus, 75 cents. Okay, we're in Manhattan. A pizza was $1. You could have a couple of slices, $2. I mean,
and then
you
you
could do
for
something.
another 50.
Like you could
$50 to park now.
You can work it out
Any
with
venue, $50.
If you had a $20 bill, you could work it out and be hanging out all day, and still have food and something to drink and even a beer or whatever. You'd be all right. Chinese food, get a shrimp fried rice, some fried rice or whatever. I mean, you could get that for $2-3 back then. So you'd be able to function and do that, and then even have a few dollars to pay for a rehearsal studio out of that $20. And that was a lot of money back then. But
$12 a beer at almost any venue in New York City.
Yeah, nowadays it's like,
that's cheap a beer.
Yeah, I mean, this is not by accident, all this financial stuff, but it's to the point where what it does is it keeps the people that have these creative ideas, these thinkers that think for themselves, they don't want people that are creative and think for themselves. They want everybody to just comply.
Yep.
Comply and be obedient. And if you have your own ideas, that's not allowed, right? But that's who I am.
Yeah.
I have my own creative ideas, and it's like you don't want to constrain that energy, that thought process, that thinking process. It's really a way of existing. It's not even just writing. It's thinking like that. Always thinking of ideas. It doesn't even have to be music. It could be other creative, ideas. Anyway, let's get some questions. I don't mean to
Ralph, you got something.
overstate it.
I want to know. Have you ever seen this version of Fistful Metal?
Oh yeah, I have that. Yeah, I have that one. The 310-inch. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
Fistful
Cool.
Metal and Armed and Dangerous together. Do we have any questions?
Yeah.
Hey, my version. I asked I made a comment the last time you were on. I wasn't part of I wasn't an Almost Humanoid at the time, but I made a comment that when I met Scott and Charlie at a horror convention, they signed my Fistful of Metal and they signed my SOD. And when I bring both of those albums, they looked at each other and they're like, "Wow, again?" And I just sat there and I didn't know what they were talking about, but. And then Charlie looked at me. He's like, for some reason, all day, he's like, people bringing 2 albums, and these are the 2 albums they're bringing. And he just had to tell me because they were talking about it or showing them again. He's like, here we go again, and these 2 again.
Well,
Fan favorites.
It shouldn't be too much of a surprise that, his first album, people want him to sign. That's what's old school. Is the first album, the first single, that he played on, Soldiers of Metal. He played on one half of that. He played on the Soldiers of Metal part. Greg D'Angelo was on the B side of that on Howling Furies. But I mean, that would be his first recording, his first vinyl. Would it be a surprise for him to sign that, or for some fan to want to get that signed? Would it be a surprise for Fistful of Metal to be signed as the first Anthrax album? I think it's all emotional. It's all this thinking process of what they want to perceive to be important to them. But
yeah, and for me as a fan to get that signed, that was I didn't even think of another Anthrax album to bring because this was such an important album to me because I grew up on Sabbath, AC/DC, and Judas Priest and Maiden. And when I was transitioning to the heavier stuff, it was bands like Anthrax, Metal Church, Overkill that were like the bands that were a perfect connection to what I was listening to with Iron Maiden and Priest and everything before I got into the really heavy stuff. Like, so that Fistful of Metal is just right in there at a time where I was done with the Motley Crues and all that kind of shit. And I wanted to just go into heavier stuff. So I got to just say how important Fistful of Metal was to me as a kid. I was, 14 years old when it came out, and it was just perfect timing for me where I was and trying to get into heavier music. And really quick, is another thing is I read Scott Ian and Danny Lilker's books, and I just wonder if you had read them. They both cover your time in Anthrax, and if you had any thoughts about them. I know a lot of times people won't even bother reading them if they're ex-members or whatever. I just wonder if you read them, and what do you think about those books?
So if you're asking me if I ran out to the store to buy, something that people that were jealous of me and hated me and put it into a book, I wasn't running out to the store to buy a book, because that's just the reality. It's just, there's what more to say about it. No one sent me a copy to review. And I've heard what people have said about it. I've heard, read excerpts of what people have said, but it's very easy for a ghostwriter or for a person to spin things how they want to create their own history. If you want to look about how things are spun about history, just look at Wikipedia. Anyone's wiki page, they put all kinds of information out there that's not even true. That's just like made up stories. And people, they look at that and they use that as a reference, like it was the actual gospel from God, like, okay, show me where God wrote it. Oh, you're talking about man? You're talking about scribes? You're talking about like, oh, they work for the Pope, they work for the church, but where's the part where God wrote it in his handwriting? Show me that. Because that's what we're talking about. It's like, if someone's telling you, oh, well, this is what happened. Okay, well, I like to have some substantive evidence, some proof. And when I speak, I'm not, people, they don't really want to hear my opinions, and I realize that. It's like they want to know something that's true and prove it, like, don't bullshit me. What's the proof? And that's something that I don't think people really want to hear. The truth is a motherfucker. The truth hurts like a bastard. It is painful, and yeah, as you add years to your life, you learn more and more how people want to hide from the truth. What did we do back in the 70s or 80s? We wanted to drink and, escape from the truth. We wanted to go to concerts. We wanted to get away from that truth. The truth was pretty rough in some places. But when it comes down to it, yeah, you got to face the truth. And for me, people could tell their stories, and some of them don't have a good memory. My problem is I don't really have such an issue with memory. It's more like the opposite. I have trouble disremembering. I'd like to unremember some things, some things that happen. It's like, how do I wipe this out of my mind? Like they say about some things, you can't unsee it. I'd like to unsee some things or unremember some things, because some things are just, it's a painful lesson. That's how you learn. Hopefully you learn. And the truth is something that I think there's a great psychosis in this world. People don't want to face that. They don't, they want to hear the happy news. They don't want to hear the real truthful news. They don't want to know the damn truth. And then there's people giving misinformation about news. So where do you get your news, and how do you get the truth? And do you care about the truth? Do you not want to know the truth? I think we're in a very challenging time in history where, what information is true and what's not true. At least with heavy metal back in the day, back in the days of the mystique, when you get the Led Zeppelin album and there's these rune stones, or these giant stones with a bunch of blonde curly haired naked people climbing up on them. It's like, what is this? It was a mystery. It was mystique. It was, you held this thing, and it was like, it was a sanctity. And then it became like all this MTV stuff, and it's like everything's plagiarized. You got to have, chicks with, in their bikinis dancing like this with a guitar, addicted to love, it's like, then it became like you have to do a video now, and you have to do all this other stuff. But for me, it's really down to the music. It's down to the core of the energy and connecting with the people in the crowd. So for me, it's really about making that energy connection. And sometimes, that's a hard thing to accomplish because of the sound or the band or the environment or, there's a lot of things. When I say the band's typically, excellent. They work real hard, but there's occasions where, because of the financial aspects, the constriction part where, I got to fly somewhere and hopefully the band did their homework, and if they speak a different language or the communication wasn't great, or we didn't have a lot of time, they didn't have enough time to study, then that could be a compromise, but the show must go on. So it's a challenge to do that, as opposed to having your own band, which I have, but it's like, if they don't have $6,000 to buy 6 plane tickets to wherever, and that's not including the band, where the band gets paid, or food, or a hotel, or anything. You need equipment sometimes, like a step-up converter, step-down converter. Just some things that you need. To make sure that you can do the tour, have a transportation, have place for the band to stay. I mean, all of these things are part of that, or a rehearsal. So it makes a lot more sense for me to come in mercenary style and do it in a country, or do a run of shows. And that's how a lot of artists do it. That's how Paul Di'Anno did that for years. Ripper Owens did it for years. Of course, now Ripper's doing great. He can have his band and go and play. But Blaze Bayley did it before. He has his band, the Absolva guys. But he would fly and play some shows with a different band. So that has its challenges. Certainly. But the fans, from their expectations, it's like, we want it perfect. Oh, you made a mistake. Oh, we can't have that. They'll criticize you for that. Well, hey, what would you rather have? Nothing or something? I mean, I'm still playing, and I'm still here, and I'm playing, in Brazil, and I'm playing in Canada, and I played Latin America last year. We had, sold out shows. It was great. Not all the shows, but it was really amazing. And to have the experience. Anthrax didn't bring me to any of those countries. We played one show in Montreal, which was great. Too bad I was sick. I was getting sick on that show. And then Quebec City, we walked into the venue and we walked out, and the fans were really mad. But the PA was not sufficient. The the place looked like it was like a bomb shelter, hit by a bomb, and there was a bunch of spray paint everywhere, and there was the PA system, monitors. It was just like someone's homemade PA system. It was really bad. So I think the Raven guys saw that, and they're like, oh no, we can't, we don't want to play here. And I'm like, I watched everyone walk in, and then they're all walking out and getting on the bus. And I'm like, what are we doing? I thought we were playing. No, we're leaving. Like, what? And the fans were chasing after the bus. So that was how our Canada tour started going on the first show. Like, we bailed. And it wasn't me bailing. It's like I had to go with the bus because that was my ride. I would have stayed. I wanted to play for the fans. They were cool fans, and they were, the hardcore French Canadian fans. And I was ready to play, And it would have sucked without a monitor system of any type, but they just didn't have it. It was like going to a barbecue where they didn't have any food. Like, oh, there's a nice barbecue. Where's the food? Sorry, no beer either.
One question that was asked in the chat when we first started the show from Randy. You saw Raven and Anthrax in '84 at the country club in Tedessa. Does Neil have any stories or memories of that gig?
Well, I don't want to go too overboard since I've been on this interview for a while, but yeah, I remember. You remember the show 8 is Enough?
Yeah.
The television show back in the 80s.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the child actor on the show? Nicholas was his acting name.
Adam something, right?
Yeah.
Adam Rich.
Adam Rich. So he came back.
Didn't he die eating Pop Rocks and milk or something like that?
No,
So
but he did die a couple years ago.
That's too bad.
Did die, but the rumor is, Ralph, is Mikey from Life Cereal.
Yeah, he looked like that guy. Yeah,
But that's
Same haircut.
So Adam Rich, he came backstage. He was at the show.
Oh, cool.
And we played at the country club twice. So I got strep throat because, I was in the van with the band. We had this white van. We were driving around in California, and these guys would not, the band members would not let me rest. They would not let me, I had strep throat by the time I got and a fever of over 104. When I got to San Francisco, I was in the hotel room, so sick. The first night at the country club would have probably been better than the second time, because I think I played there on July 6th or 5th or something like that. And then we went straight up to San Francisco, played up there, I think on July 7th, I think. And then back to LA and played at the country club again. Like, it was split between going up to San Francisco and coming back. So I had strep throat. I remember being in the hotel room in San Francisco. Like, we got there, we went to the record store right when we got there. We went, met with some people, and I was so sick, I went back to the hotel room. And I laid down, and I was like, I had this fever. I tried to sleep. My head was pounding. It was strep throat. I mean, I was in such bad shape. I had to get dressed for the show. I was like 30 minutes before stage time trying to put on my clothes. Leather stuff is what I wore, and the metal stuff. And I was just, coughing up, spitting up, pouring out of me. It was just phlegm everywhere. My eyes weren't open. I was coughing and hacking, and in a hot shower, I had the fever. So I'm trying to pull on my clothes, barely had the strength to get out the door and walk, like falling over. So they get me in the car, they got me to the show. And then I'm playing the show. I was just trying to get through it. And, it was kind of a surprise, because in San Francisco, you had people jumping on the stage. And, I didn't want someone jumping on the stage, attacking the guitar player, which is what it looked like. Looked like someone was jumping up, trying to get after Dan Spitz. So I was like, let me push these people off. Like, what the hell? This is our stage. You're jumping up on the stage. You ain't some hot looking chick jumping up. There's some, sweat hog jumping up on the stage. We don't need Welcome Back Kotter on the stage. Stay off the stage. That was my thought. But then I saw James Hetfield jump on the stage, and I saw other people jumping on the stage, and they would just do it on the side and jump off. Like, they didn't want to run near me, because they saw me send someone flying into the audience. And I didn't know that this is what people did at metal shows. They were going to jump on stage and then dive off. But San Francisco, the Bay Area, they were the front runner, and yeah, so they were jumping off the stage. So after I saw like James Hetfield do it, like, okay, I'm not going to go run after each one of these guys jumping up on the stage, but I just didn't want them to ruin the show and attack the guitar player or break their instrument or hurt somebody. Not that these guys were looking out for me, I should have just let them do whatever they wanted, because that would have been a better idea. But then people, one guy was spitting, at that point, it's like, I'm just trying to get through the show and sing and be able to get through. And I didn't think I was singing very well at that show, because I had strep throat. I mean, it felt like razor blades. Who feels like they want to sing when they got strep throat? As sick as any of you guys have ever been, imagine having to do a show like you're in a bed, and like you can't even, your head is so dizzy, and you're trying to do something to please others. And that's really what it was. It was the love of, and the commitment, and I pushed through. So singing with a strep throat, that was the harshest thing. And that happened in San Francisco. But then, like a day or two later, we had to go play in LA. So I went back to LA, playing in Reseda Country Club. So to get back there, I wasn't as my fever broke. I wasn't as sick as I was at the Kabuki Theater in San Francisco, but that was a rough show too for me, the second country club show, because my voice didn't have a chance to heal. I didn't have any rest. I'm in the van with the band, and they're all attacking me. All of the band was just, they wouldn't let me rest. They were just hating on me. So it's like, what did I do? I'm just sick. I'm just trying to rest. I didn't have nothing to say, and I'm just trying. I couldn't talk much. I'm trying to rest my voice, and it was just an awful experience. Not only from being sick, but what was worse than having strep throat was having, people that were trying to undermine you and throw you under the bus, because they're jealous or they're hating or whatever it is. They want validation. They don't want their singer to, God forbid anyone should like the singer of the band. So I think that's probably why they don't want to sign. They don't want to see the Fistful of Metal album, even though that's their, that's an iconic debut album for Anthrax. I mean, how do you massage that into saying, Among the Living was their iconic debut? I mean, it wasn't. Spreading the Disease, that wasn't where the band started. That's not representative of old school. That was after the band had, numerous releases many years down the road. So Fistful of Metal was the iconic release that got the band launched in the first place. And, you know, I think you can manipulate that idea, try to brainwash people or try to, like, it's almost like you saying, well, I was never married before, even though this is my third marriage. Those first two didn't count, Yeah, there was a second singer after me, there was Matt Fallon, right? He was the singer in the band too. And I guess that didn't work out. But they just, brush over it, just like Dan Nelson, they kind of brush over it. Like, oh, well, we're in the band with Dan Nelson for 2 years, but that didn't happen. We'll just cover that up, watch over that. I mean, fans aren't stupid. They know what's going on. And I mean, the band was playing opening for Iron Maiden with Dan Nelson. And Dan's a great guy. I mean, I talked to Dan before. He messaged me not too long ago just to say hi. And of course,
I think when they were signing the album, I think they just kind of like thought like, wow, this is just so weird that all day long people are bringing just these two albums, SOD and Fistful of Metal. It just happened to be like, like you're saying, they're their oldest ones and their most important ones to a lot of us. So they just thought it was weird that it was like, wow, here we go again, these two albums.
Listen to what the fans are saying, right? I mean, the fans are telling you what you need to hear. It's like listening to your wife or your children. I mean, listen to what they have to say, because you're not going to learn anything if you're talking all the time. And if you have your agenda or your ideas, it's like, well, what about their ideas? I mean, it's got to be a mutual thing. And for the fans of a band, it's like, you can try to push, this. I mean, you could try to push these songs, but the fans are going to tell you what songs they want to hear. You may not like playing your big hit single that was a big commercial hit. I think the band Nazareth had that issue with Love Hurts. It's like, it wasn't their song. It was like a cover song. I mean, it was someone else that wrote it. But it was the iconic song that you identify with Nazareth, one of them. I mean, they have a lot of great songs, Hair of the Dog and so on, but it's like that sound was something that people can't forget. It's indelible in the memories of people. And, so that's what people want to hear. That's the song.
Quiet Riot had both their big like Slade songs, and then the next album they tried to do more Slade songs. It was like that must have been kind of weird because they, wasn't their songs, but that was the songs that were super popular.
To hear.
Yeah, but were those songs as good as the other ones? Like, there's certain ones that just fit perfectly. Some of the songs just fit perfectly, and also some songs are not as good as other songs. So you might have a huge hit with a certain song, but you try to pull other songs from that artist, but that artist didn't have a song as good as that first one. So that happens. But understanding how songs like that were written and maybe writing in that capacity can certainly be possible as well. But yeah, I mean, I think it's also the luck of the draw. Certain things hit fans or hit listeners a certain way. It's just, I think an interesting story is the one about the Eagles, because you had Glenn Frey, who was a neighbor of Jackson Browne. And, the first song, I mean, I never knew this, but I read it recently that the first song that the Eagles really hit it with was a Jackson Browne song that Jackson was trying to work on for like a year. And Glenn Frey was his neighbor in Echo Park, and he listened to him play the song, and he couldn't figure out, he got the Winslow, Arizona lyric, and then, standing in the corner. And then Glenn Frey comes in with, "It's a girl, my lord, and a flatbed Ford," and it's just a combination. It's kind of an awkward, I listen back to that and it sounds awkward to me. Like that part, kind of takes in a little bit different spin, but it's like, it worked really well. The lyrics in a song like that. And it's like, sometimes that's what it takes. But I never knew that. I thought Jackson Browne, like later on, he was friends with the band. He helped them out, gave them a song. No, it was like, that was their first song that really, like, these guys were playing Linda Ronstadt's band. They were basically backing her up. And then they had this opportunity to do their own thing. And they had Jackson Browne's song, which couldn't even be finished. And that's the song that gave them kind of a start. And then they had David Geffen with, his Asylum Records, which was, the timing and everything in the 70s, early 70s, it just worked out. you had an environment that was conducive. So I think with Anthrax, you had this environment with John Zazula and the metal scene at that time. It was conducive, and Anthrax had the opportunity to get on board with the label. We tried real hard to get signed with Megaforce, and finally, they put out our single and then the album, because the single was well received. So, Anthrax didn't start with Among the Living or Spreading the Disease. It was Soldiers of Metal that sold out in 2 weeks, that single, 3,000 copies. And then, the Fistful of Metal album, that certainly woke people up worldwide, and somebody liked it, obviously, and then there was a tour and people came to it. I would say that the tour was very well attended, packed shows every time. And then the last show with the band for me was at Roseland. And actually at that show, I thought that Anthrax, we were touring all these shows, the whole tour. We were hot at that time. And I thought we were just, we were hurting Raven on the show. John Gallagher was singing with the headset and all that. Mark and John, they had the headset. And, I don't know, headsets to me are awkward like that. Me, I was out there, we were thrashing, it was raw, and I thought we were killing it night after night. And by the time Roseland came around, we were hot, we were killing it. And our set was a fireball. And Metallica had to play after us, before Raven. They weren't headlining, they were playing in between. So I thought that we put on a very strong performance, probably the best performance out of the whole tour. So I don't think Metallica had their best night on that show. But because of Metallica other tour, All for One, Kill 'Em All for One tour, and because of all the momentum they had, and of course them playing in Europe and all this other stuff, well, at that point, they were already signed. It was already determined. That night, when Michael Alago came to Roseland, they were inking the deal. The contracts were already ready to go. He was just going to see the band again. I think that's kind of where it went. I don't think that show was like the most amazing show Metallica ever played. I think for the fans, yeah, they got to see Metallica at Roseland. But I think from my standpoint, Anthrax was a well-oiled machine. We learned a lot of things on that first U.S. tour, North American tour. So, this is after playing the Midwest, after playing California, going through all that sickness, all that stuff that happened, and then going back to play in Roseland as a final show, like return to the hometown in New York City. So to me, that was a really important show from that standpoint, and all my friends and family were there. Everybody, and it was, and it just was a fireball. I just came out with the fury, and we had the momentum. And I think that show was just, a landmark show for Anthrax. That was probably the best show of that era. And Metallica, I felt, was not, not at the energy level. They just couldn't keep it. We were coming from all these shows in a row, and here we are. We're it was building up. It was this momentum. Metallica was flying in for a one-off show. That wasn't. It wasn't the same thing. Yeah, Metallica's Metallica, but I think Raven as well. They were hot. They were playing night after night. They were a well-oiled machine. But Anthrax just at that point had the I don't know. We had the fierceness and the energy, and as far as thrash goes, it was relentless. It was a pummeling, and the fans reacted, and they ripped off the light fixtures off the wall. They destroyed the bathroom. I think after Anthrax played at Roseland, being the first band on, it was Anthrax, then Metallica, then Raven. They were ready to shut down the show right then after we played, because the place was destroyed. The fans ripped the fucking place to shreds. They ripped the shit off the walls. They ripped, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers dancing at Roseland. They ripped those. They didn't rip the chandeliers off the ceilings, but they ripped the fixtures off the walls. It was terrible. I felt like this is a historic place. You guys are destroying this dance hall.
That's such a historic show, and it's mainly because of like the Michael Alago signing of Metallica, and people forget like that was the final, Neil Turbin Anthrax fronted show. It was historic on two levels. there. But it's good to hear, people forget that that was such an important night for
I,
you, your ending of
I
Anthrax.
believe I believe that show, all three bands were signed because of that.
Actually, Anthrax was already with Megaforce.
Wasn't it Island that signed them? That
No, well, maybe. I wasn't, I had my own dressing room, which I was thankful for. I didn't have to be abused, emotionally abused constantly. So it was nice to have like a reprieve from that. I had my own hotel room, my own dressing room, and that was good because, no one should have to go through an abusive situation. And that was great to have, just Richie Stotts backstage with his blue mohawk and from the Plasmatics and some great people that came to find me, because I was on the other side of they had their dressing room and they put me somewhere else. So, I mean, they knew what they were planning to do. This was a coup that was planned, and that's the way they treated me the whole tour and the whole time. And so, it's not something that's talked about, but and when you talk about something like that, people just assume, oh, he's the bad guy. Oh, what's wrong with him? I was just trying to get along. I try to be friends with people. I try to extend the olive branch, try to be kind, try to be, considerate of others. But, when you do that and other people are not trying to be considerate of you ever, and that's not their agenda, then, good luck with that, So it's better to play with kids that want to play nice. That's all I can tell you. It was unfortunate that I didn't join Def Leppard at 16. That would have been a better choice because those guys were a family. They played together. They worked together. They were a team. I'm sure they had their ups and downs, but it was a different situation, obviously. It's just really weird to, be in a band where you have like a person on a different instrument that's jealous of you. Can you imagine? Like you're playing an instrument, this other person doesn't even do what you do, but they're jealous of you and they're trying to undermine you. But you're in the same band. It's like we're trying to run the train on the same tracks to go to the same place, same destination, but they're trying to throw me under the train tracks. So it's like, what's the point? And but I didn't look at it that way. I just said, I'm going to hold on to this. It's like going to ride on one of those electric bulls or whatever. You try to hold on, and I'm going to stay on this bull no matter how it kicks me, how the horse kicks me. And it's like, yeah, you get kicked. That's the outcome. You get thrown off the horse. So that was the outcome, no doubt about it. And but I didn't mean to divert the question completely. But yeah, from Los Angeles to San Francisco, really, that was the San Francisco show was absolutely one that stood out. The Roseland show. There's other shows. I could tell you about the Embassy Ballroom in Chicago. I could tell you about the Wax Museum in Washington, D.C. I don't forget the stuff. I could tell you about I think it's Roseville, Oregon, or the Adams Theater in San Diego. I remember all of these, every venue. Adams Theater, we went to an after party at Adams Theater in San Diego. We went to someone's house in the backyard. It was Anthrax and some of the guys from Raven, I think, went to this party. So, yeah, I can remember these things. And some things I like to forget, like I said. But one thing
Raven's next album, Stay Hard, I believe, was on a major label, too. Like, it wasn't, like, such a big thing as the Metallica getting signed to a major label. But Raven did get, like, a good contract. Their next album was on they had the video on MTV and stuff like that,
Yeah, that was at times, and it's that's just the way things go. But you live and you learn, and I'm still rocking, still singing all the high notes, no tapes. And I just wanted to give everyone a mention on the Canadian shows that you could get tickets at ticketscene.ca/front row promotions. So you can get tickets. I believe they're $28 for those shows for each one, which is a pretty good price. That's Canadian, $28. So it's less in American dollars if you're coming from the US. And, I haven't played these songs in Canada or ever played them, touring under my own name. And, it's going to be some really fierce, amazing shows. We're going to play all of the songs. and I have a great band there. Drowning in Blood is backing me for the shows. We also have some great openers on all of those shows. I want to make sure I can mention them, so I don't have just to give everybody credit and stuff. So there's Zero Tolerance. There's Mutank, Drowning in Blood, of course. There's someone's going to hate me if I forget to mention them, right? So I just want to make sure that I have it right here. Let me just double. Drowning in Blood, yeah, Mutank, Machine Messiah, Zero Tolerance, and Zephyr. Okay, they're going to be playing with us at the Rock Pile in Toronto. And also in Montreal, we have Machine Messiah, and I believe at that show, Mutank is playing with us, and Drowning in Blood is backing me, and that's going to be in Montreal, Piranha Bar. And then there's one other one, and that is in Ottawa, and the band Infrared and Machine Messiah are going to be supporting that show. So again, you can get tickets for the Canadian date shows on ticketscene.ca/front row promotions. And then for Brazil, we're playing Manifesto Bar, which is a beautiful venue. They have a new Manifesto Bar that they've recently upgraded. It's an even bigger, more incredible venue. It's one of the very best venues in Sao Paulo for our music and for any music. And they have an incredible staff of people. I mean, incredible team. We've worked together on a number of things, and they've just been so, excellent and top level to deal with, And it's great when that can happen, with people that are reliable, that do what they say they're going to do and follow through and aren't wishy-washy, that kind of thing. A lot of independent artists have to deal with independent promoters, independent agents. And, when it comes to simple things like, here's the set list, here's the songs for the bands to learn, and they change your set list. And they give the band, somehow the band has God Save the Queen. Like, I never sent that song. There is no recording of it that I sent, because I don't sing that song, and it's not even a song in the set list or on the song list. But why would something like that be why would someone from a band receive that? You see what I'm saying? It's like, that's the kind of crap that, when you got people undermining you from all levels in business, it's like, or people that don't listen, they don't pay attention to details, or there's a language difference, translations difference. But I don't know any translation that will screw that up, and people will have God Save the Queen. Like, that wasn't a song I'm playing. Yeah, it was on that EP, but it has nothing to do with me. That was a hardcore punk Anthrax that wanted to do God Save the Queen, and they don't even play it. So I don't know. Is that something they ever played live? I don't know. Do you know of any instance where they did that?
Well, Neil, thank you so much for joining us. It was awesome.
Thank you, guys. I hope I didn't talk too much again, but hey,
No,
that's
what you're here for. That's what you're here for. So.
You guys ask me questions. What do you want me to do?
You got the stories and the history, man. We're here to listen.
I'll give you one last story, one last quick story. So this is in 1983. It might have been even, 1983, like early 1983, or might have even been, it couldn't have been 1982. It had to be 83. With Greg D'Angelo's van. We're on Queens Boulevard in Forest Hills with Metallica and Anthrax in the van. And we're in the van. We're drinking some beverages in the van. I had a pack of some beverages, and I was sitting right next to Cliff Burton. I was like at the very end on these bench seats that were lined up the side of the inside of the van. And I think Scott was next to Kirk. He was, further up on the bench, and Kirk was next to Cliff, and then I was at the other end. And we had some stuff in the van, like this is the van Greg used to move gear and his drums, and James was there. Everybody was in there sitting on the other side, and Lars and our guys. But I don't think Greg Walls was I don't know that Greg Walls was in that particular meeting, because Greg kind of left early. He went to go see his girlfriend, or he'd be out of there quick, you know. So he didn't always stay. But I think it was Dan Loker, Scott, not Dan Spitz. Dan Spitz would drive from upstate New York, so he was hardly ever there. So it was just three of us from Anthrax. And I was sitting right next to Cliff. And what happened is we got pulled over by the man, by New York's finest, you know. And so they pulled us over, and I think it was Greg D'Angelo was outside. He was driving. He was outside the van talking to the man, and he was asking Greg, like, what's going on in the van. So he made everyone get out of the van. So we had to open the door, and I'm like, oh shit. I got a brown bag with some beverages in it, and they were glass bottles in those days. And I'm like, okay, put it back in the bag and, you know, put it under the seat. And here's the story. This is really the thing that makes the whole story for me about Cliff Burton. Cliff is sitting there with the beer in his hand, and he's like, I don't care. He just didn't give a shit. He didn't put it in the bag. He wasn't trying to. I was like, Cliff, put it in the bag, man. Put it back in the slot, and I'll put the cap back on, and we'll shove it under the seat. He's like, nah, man, I don't care. I just, you know, to me, I just love Cliff because he was so authentic that way. And, you know, that's the real story of what happened on Queens Boulevard in Forest Hills. And, you know, we got pulled over. We didn't get arrested. We didn't get booked. We didn't get a summons. We didn't get into trouble. But it was a close call. And, you know, yeah, we had some beverages. And, yeah, Cliff had a beer in his hand. And he didn't care. Cliff Burton did not care if they pulled him over and if they, you know, found him with beer in his hand. Yeah, he was just, you know, he was that guy. He was just honest, you know, a pure, you know, honest, straight up guy. And that's what I loved about him. He was just like no bullshit, you know, to the core.
Right on.
Okay.
And Neil, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ralph. I hope you're doing well, man.
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you.
It's great to see all you guys, and thanks for, you know, sharing your thoughts. And I hope I didn't overrun the show here. So
You were great, man.
Yeah,
Good, man.
I guess if I had nothing to say, I'd say yes, no, true, or false, right? If you asked me those questions, I could have done that, but not likely though. Well, have a great night, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you for
Thanks,
coming on.
Neil.
Well,
Next
fun.
week, I won't be here. I'm gonna go see Bruce Dickinson next week, but on Wednesday we're doing a live show, Kiss Wednesday live show.
Excellent.
Oh my God, Kiss.
And last thing, Club de Ingresso, that's for Brazil. Clubdeingresso.br. It's where the tickets for the VIP meet and greet are for you know, for the show on September 21st in Sao Paulo at Manifesto Bar. So there's a meet and greet package. We're also going to have merch. So we're doing shirts for Brazil, and we're also doing them for Canada as well. So this is going to be an exciting show and an exciting tour because we're really playing the old school. So if you're really an old school thrash fan, especially a Fistful of Metal, Armed and Dangerous and Spreading the Disease songs, Gung Ho, Raise Hell, you know, all the Fistful songs, I'll be playing all of them. Okay, all of those songs. And my own songs, which are also incredible and well received. So thank you so much, and really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys today.
Thank you so much for joining us. You're a legend to us, you know?
Well, I'm all right. I'm just trying to hang with y'all.
And Neil, hang out for 2 seconds after we're done with this, because I got to ask you something really quick.
Sure, man.
All right, guys, till next Wednesday. Smack 'em
Salute.
down.
Bye.
Back 'em a gob.